From R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, this is The Retirement.
When you retire, if you want an exciting life, you need a boring investment strategy.
Matters.
If you enter into retirement without a plan for income, you're not retired, you're simply unemployed.
Podcast.
Hey, this is your host, Dale Smothers, and you're listening to the Retirement Matters Podcast. My hope is that you will find the information you need in every single show on how to do one of the three things: either saving more money more efficiently, planning better for your future where you can live in retirement worry-free, or my favorite, how you can live a happy and fulfilled life in this life you have been given. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it listening to this episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast. On this episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast, we discuss Roth conversions and unnecessary fees. You are not going to want to miss what you hear in this episode. We talk about why it may or may not make sense for Roth conversions and how you can see if unnecessary fees are being charged to your account just by looking at your statement. We hope that you enjoy this episode. If there's anything else you would like to hear more about, let us know by commenting on our podcast right here or liking, subscribing, and giving us an honest review. It only helps us reach more people. Without further ado, let's get to this week's episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast. Good morning to you. I hope you're doing well and you're ready to start discussing all things retirement matters. This morning, we are taking a look at a powerful tool for lowering your taxes on your retirement accounts and across your entire retirement journey. If done correctly, this can lower your lifetime tax bill and substantially change the way that your money passes to your loved ones in terms of the taxation of those dollars. It can save a lot of money. It can make you a lot of money. But if it's done incorrectly, it can cost you a lot of unknown hidden expenses and even additional taxes. These good intentions can be an expensive mistake if you're not careful. So we're going to go through a couple of things that you need to be aware of. And I also want to discuss some hidden fees that you may be paying. And we'll even discuss a couple of ways that you can look at your statement and tell if you are in these types of accounts or maybe these types of investments. Some good information you can take back to your portfolio and potentially change the way that you are working towards the retirement you've always imagined. We help you do that on this show each and every weekend, and this weekend will be no different. So let's get into it. Before we do, if you listen to the show frequently, you know that we get to what we call our pause for positivity right off the top. And today, I want to talk to you about this pause for positivity from a little bit more of a financial standpoint than we normally do, because I think it's a good way to bring it in to why we do what we do here at RDS Wealth. You know, there's a lot of negative news, a lot of noise out there right now that you could definitely pay attention to. And if you're not careful, it's easy for it to potentially strip you of your purpose here on this earth. Why are you here? What do you have to do in your life? What is it exactly that you desire to do? What have you been called to do? What's your destiny? We like to bring out positive thoughts for people to consider, for the listeners to actually roll around. And we know that we have intelligent listeners here. You're listening to the show a lot of times for a purpose, to change the way that you are investing, perhaps, to change the way you are living. We love the idea of living happy, and we believe that we can help each other do that. And we can impact this world one person at a time to change the world around us. But to do this, a lot of times you have to just blot out or eliminate the noise that you see or hear in the news media. If you're not careful, it will turn you against a lot of people that you should be loving in this time. One good example comes to mind from a story that I heard about a young teacher. And in order to introduce that story, I'm going to tell you the reason all this matters is because wealth without true independence or purpose is the most unique form of poverty. That's a statement that I've read recently, and it really stuck out to me. It says wealth without a true independence or a purpose is the most unique form of poverty. And I think that can be taken multiple ways. If you don't have a true purpose, do you really have wealth? And, you may have all the wealth in the world, but if you don't have independence to spend that wealth, on the things that you know you care about the most, then are you really wealthy? So this idea of wealth without independence or purpose being the most cruel form of poverty really goes into how do we build a purpose? That would be the question. If you maybe don't have one, how do I build it? And I think a good way to start is by helping others find theirs. This story is about a young teacher who takes a balloon and blows it up and writes a student's name on the balloon and then throws it out into the hallway. She proceeds to do this with every one of her students. Before you know it, there's about 30 balloons out in the hallway. She then instructs her students, young kids, this was an elementary school teacher, to go out into the hallway and as quickly as they can, find their balloon. She puts a timer on it. In about 10 minutes, every student had their balloon. And of course, they were giggling and laughing, and the whole time it was a game. She then asked the students, do they think they could do it quicker? And they said yes, they think they could. So she threw them back out in the hallway, closed the door, didn't let them see where the balloons were. And it wasn't spread out all over. It was within an area that was pretty small. She opens the door and says, go find your balloon. It still, again, took around 8.5 minutes, 9 minutes, right at 9 minutes. She said, well, I've got an idea. Why don't we all do this completely different? Instead of finding your balloon, I want you to go pick up your nearest balloon to you, find whose name is on it, then go find that person and hand them their balloon. And within a minute and a half, every student had their balloon. This is a great illustration to show that if you're running around searching for just your purpose, sometimes it just takes a while. But if we'll all help one another, find each other's purpose, find each other's happiness, find each other's successes, then it just so happens that miraculously our own appears before us. Helping others find their reason for being here may very easily be the reason you're here in the first place. Think about that. Let's apply that this week. Let's go out into the world and help others achieve what they're after, achieve their successes, and I think it might just yield a successful day, maybe a week, maybe even a month or a year for you. Let's go into this week challenging one another to do that, and I think we're going to continue to make this world a better place to live. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going into our first segment, which is going to be a little bit longer. It's about Roth conversions, whether or not you need to be doing those now inside of your own retirement plan. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back with more Retirement Matters right after this.
You're listening to the Retirement Matters Show with Dale Smothers. If you'd like to listen to past episodes and find exclusive content and full-length interviews, search for the Retirement Matters podcast on the podcast platform of your choice, or visit us online at rdswealth.com. Unfortunately, for many retirees, they're simply trading in the stress of work for the stress and worry about their financial future. At RD Smothers Wealth Management, our goal is to help build you a retirement plan that provides a smooth transition away from the time clock and into the time of your life. So even if you're still waiting on work retirement, we want to help you retire now from the worry of retirement funding. If you'd like to chat with a member of our team, you can do so absolutely free by calling 270-600-PLAN. That's 270-600-PLAN. Visit us online at rdswealth.com and be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let's jump into a very important segment about lowering your taxes in retirement. How do we do this? And how do we even maybe lower taxes on things like Social Security? Well, a lot of this takes proactive planning. And many times when you're in growth phase, you may not be as focused on what income phase is going to look like for you. This is why we talk about anyone who's over the age of 59 and a half. It's really important for us to start looking at your whole picture, the entire scope of your retirement plan. It's necessary that we don't use too small of a scope when we're looking at your plan. If we're not careful, we'll focus only on your investments. But what we really need to be looking at in conjunction with your investments is how you're going to get income, what accounts are going to generate that income, what is the taxation on that income, and how do we lower that taxation, if at all possible, in a relationship with Social Security, Medicare, even long-term care expenses. All of this has to come together, and you've got to make sure that you're accounting for inflation and what that's going to do to your income. So taxes are a big part of this. Here's what we know to be true at RDS Wealth. We know that if we can save a client 10, 20, or even 30% on their taxes over their lifetime, it's the same as if we had made them 10, 20, or even 30% additional money on their investments. And it's with no additional risk. This is a big benefit for our clients, and it all starts with the proactive planning. But you just can't go in and immediately start doing Roth conversions, which is one big tool that is used in this proactive tax planning approach. You can't just start doing those without understanding how it's going to adjust other areas of your portfolio. If you're not careful, you will walk into retirement unprepared for this tax journey, and you will end up handing the IRS more money than is necessary. So many people enter into retirement never having even looked at their tax picture or planned for their tax journey throughout retirement. And this is what we do here at RDS Wealth. We help clients make sure they're not paying unnecessary taxes in addition to unnecessary fees or taking unnecessary risk. We help clients do that every single day. I want to tell you a quick story that this brings to mind of a time where I was headed down south. I was traveling I-65, and as I was approaching the Kentucky line, I got a little bit hungry. I passed a few additional exits, and all of a sudden now I'm in Tennessee. And in the first exit Tennessee there, I exited and went to a Cracker Barrel. Well, if I had been paying attention and had I have planned properly, my meal would have been cheaper if I had stopped just a few miles back in Kentucky and bought that meal. Why? Well, because there's an additional tax in the state of Tennessee that you have to pay that you don't have to pay in Kentucky, because they do not have an income tax in the state of Tennessee. They have a higher sales tax. So, in other words, I drove through the state of Kentucky to eat the same meal I could have had in Kentucky, but instead I took it closer to Nashville, and that meal costed me more because I didn't plan properly. The same thing can happen in retirement. It was a very small difference for this journey through Kentucky into Tennessee, but it could be a substantial difference for this journey through retirement. And you have to make sure you're doing the right amount of planning to ensure that you're not paying unnecessary tax for the same amount of income. Now, how do we do this? Well, again, one of the tools is a Roth conversion. And without getting deep into the weeds, I want to help you understand why you may or may not want to do Roth conversions. A lot of it really is discussed around how much income you're making now versus how much income you may make in your retirement years. If you find yourself in a 12, a 22, or even a 24% tax bracket, it may make a lot of sense for you to consider Roth conversions, depending on a lot of variables. This has to go into a plan. You can't just start doing Roth conversions simply because you're in the 22% tax bracket. Because depending on where you are in relation to Medicare, depending on where you are in relation to Social Security, all of this is going to be affected if you do Roth conversions. You could see less Social Security coming into your pocket because you did a Roth conversion at the wrong time. You could see more expenses on Medicare because you did a Roth conversion at the wrong time for the wrong amount of money. This is a unknown, or what we may call a hidden tax, that gets triggered for just ordinary Americans who do Roth conversions without putting it into the plan first. Well, my advisor told me it was a good idea. Well, it might be a good idea, but it's simply a tool. It's like asking whether or not a hammer is a good tool. If you're trying to build a house, yes, you will need a hammer along the way. But if you're trying to saw a board in half while building that house, the hammer is the wrong tool. This tool, Roth conversions, if deployed correctly, can save a lot of money for a retiree. But if deployed incorrectly or not considered in the whole plan, could end up costing you more in taxes than it saved you. So how does a Roth conversion save you in the first place? Well, the idea is that you pay tax on it now and you never pay tax on it again. Any money that sets in an account that is tax me later money, IRAs, 401ks as good examples, that money will eventually need to be taxed at some point. You are in a silent partnership with the IRS, and they will tell you how much of that money is theirs when you get ready to pull it out. The idea behind a Roth conversion is not to avoid tax, but instead to determine when you pay that tax. And by moving it to a Roth environment at a known rate of taxation, you then get tax deferral and growth for the rest of the time that you leave it in that Roth IRA. And when you pull it out, it is completely tax-free. You never get taxed again on the dollars you pay taxes on during the Roth conversion, nor do you get taxed on the gain that you made by investing it wisely. This Roth conversion is a powerful tool. But again, do not allow a good intention to be an unnecessary expense for you because we didn't take an actual look at the whole plan. There have been many times that we sit down with clients. One of our advisors may be talking to a client, and we say, Roth conversions are going to make sense, but not this year. And if we decide that a Roth conversion makes sense, we'll help you understand why with the math and the science behind it, because we have the ability to build the entire plan. Looking at your income that is coming in, Mr. or Mrs. Client, our recommendation is that we move this much money from your traditional account into your Roth account. By doing that, we'll generate this much tax. But by projections, even if the tax code doesn't increase at all, you are going to save this much in tax simply because we don't have required minimum distributions later in life. Maybe it's because we aren't hitting IRMA due to those required minimum distributions, and a whole host of different things that could come up by deferring this tax bill to later. Not to mention the fact that it could cost your beneficiary more money in the event that you passed away, having not spent this money, and you pass it to them. They have 10 years to take this money out if it's the right kind of beneficiary. And in that 10-year withdrawal strategy, they are going to incur more tax, most likely because they're taking this money out on top of their existing income. So all of this must go into consideration when looking at how we lower the taxation on a client's portfolio. You see, the overall objective for us when looking at it from a tax planning perspective is to take this money and see how we can pay as little in tax on every dollar as possible. And a lot of times, by proactively planning when we pay the tax and paying that tax on our schedule, not on the IRS's schedule, it allows us to save our clients money in the long run. This is not even to mention, again, if the tax code increases, if we see tax rates rise due to our extravagant spending as a country, this savings is even more magnified because we paid them at a lower rate, a known rate, as opposed to paying them at a higher unknown rate in the future. Roth conversions can be powerful. They're also tricky. And if you break any of the rules, you can face substantial penalties. So be careful not to do this on your own, and make sure that you have someone who's looking at the whole picture when you're doing this for your own portfolio. If you need assistance in making this happen, give our team a call, 270-600-PLAN, a phone call, or even navigating to our website, rdswealth.com, and setting up a 15-minute visit with one of our advisors. That could save you a substantial amount of money in the long run, and it could definitely get you started on the right track towards retirement success in the retirement you've always imagined. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back with more retirement matters, and when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about unnecessary fees. We just got done talking about unnecessary taxes and how to avoid them. Let's talk about unnecessary fees and how we see a lot of people who are investing with good intentions paying fees that just aren't necessary. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back right after this.
Thank you for listening to Retirement Matters, presented by R.D. Smothers Wealth Management. If you'd like to speak with us, give us a call at 270-600-PLAN. And if you enjoy the information in this show and would like to hear more, you can access previous shows by searching for the Retirement Matters podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. We also produce a weekly newsletter. Receive it free to your email inbox by signing up online at rdswealth.com.
All right, welcome back to the show. I want to talk to you about a conversation I had recently with one of the individuals that was coming into our office. They had already talked to an advisor on our team, and they were discussing with us some concerns that they had about being able to move their money over. They realized that we were going to bring a substantial amount of value to their overall plan. They realized that they were making the transition from growth phase to income phase, and that this income phase requires more in-depth detail and planning around their assets, more so than just what they're invested in. But they also know that the way they're invested now, every time they move their money in or out of a particular mutual fund, they get charged a commission. And they told me they wanted to chat with me, so the advisor arranged a way for us to talk. And on our conversation, we began to discuss their concerns. One of them was that they didn't want to have to pay a fee when they moved from where they were now over to our firm. And as I was having this conversation, I thought it would be a wise thing for me to bring to the radio, not so much our conversation, but what we were discussing in this conversation, because this is a misconception I'm sure that a lot of people have, and that is that if they ever change financial advisors, they have to pay a fee. And while that may be the case with some financial advisors, it's definitely not the case with R.D. Smothers Wealth Management. As a fiduciary for your account, we charge a relationship fee, not a transaction fee. So what does that mean? Well, what I want to basically tell you, and very simply tell you in layman's terms, is if you're doing rollovers from, let's say, a 401k to an IRA, or you're moving money from an existing IRA over to another IRA, and you're getting charged a commission, a 4 or 5 or 6% fee to do that, there are far more efficient ways to move that money than paying that fee. We see so many people pay unnecessary fees in front-end loads, and it really concerns me that this industry is doing things such an antiquated way that it is hurting, it's harming investors who just want the best for their portfolio. If you're working with a broker, they are not under a fiduciary responsibility. At R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, we are fiduciaries. What does that mean? Well, that means legally we are held liable if we do not operate in your best interest. And as a fiduciary investing your money in our Charles Schwab platform, we are looking at your account in a way that we're not out to put it in the thing that pays us the most, because every investment option we choose pays us nothing for the investment selection. You pay us a fee for managing that money. How much do you pay? Well, typically for most of our clients, it's less than 1% per year that you pay us to manage your overall portfolio. You bring in a portfolio of, say, $500,000, you're going to pay us less than 1% per year to manage that money. And we're going to balance the risk for you, make sure that money is in the right spots for your investments. But you don't pay us a fee to bring it over. You're not paying us a 3 or 4% commission. This particular individual I was talking to said, I don't want to pay another 5% commission to be able to move this over to you. And I told him, good news, you don't have to, because unfortunately that's an unnecessary fee. Now, the argument for people who still charge a percent commission up front is that the fee on an ongoing basis is zero, and that's also not true. The fee for an ongoing basis of fees is still, most of the time, historically and let's say nationally, the averages show that it's still somewhat close to 1%. Because you've got an underlying expense ratio on the mutual fund, which is hidden and not disclosed. And then behind the scenes, you're paying a 12B1 fee to that broker on an annual basis. This can be very costly for you and it's completely unnecessary. It is a drag on the account. And while you may not see it come out as a true fee, it definitely disables your return. So be careful of paying unnecessary fees. And you may think, well, how do I know if I'm paying this fee, Dale? It's not going to be on the statement. It will not show as an annual fee. And you may even wonder how they get away with that. I've asked that question myself. But what it does show is a A-share mutual fund on your statement. These A-share mutual funds, and you may just look at your investments, and if they have a little A out to the side of them, you likely have an A-share mutual fund. They carry a higher than necessary expense ratio, which means it weighs your return down. If an expense ratio of 1% is on that fund, you may never see it actually expressed as an expense. But if the fund earns, say, 10% and you have a 1% fee, although they never disclose it, you will just simply see a 9% return. And you may think, well, hey, 9% is great. But what if you could get the same exact fund and earn all 10%? Or what if you could get the exact same fund and earn at least 9.75% instead of paying the unnecessary 1% fee? This is possible by just looking at the investments you have. And if I try to think of a way to, I'm racking my brain here. How could I explain this? I've got a good idea. Here's an analogy that we may use. If you consider a hammer, let's just say it's a hammer, and this particular hammer you bought at Craftsman. You went into Lowe's, let's say, and it was a Craftsman hammer. You may pay $15 for the hammer, let's just say. But if you put the hammer now is a marine hammer, it's a hammer specifically made for boats. Well, all of a sudden that $15 hammer goes to $25. And if you then took that same hammer and slapped a logo on it that said, no, this is not a marine hammer. This is an aviation hammer. This hammer is specially made for aircraft. Oh, well, now that $15 hammer that moved to $25 when it was made for boats is worth at least $50. This is the idea behind mutual funds. They have something called an admiral class, and you get charged differently. It's the same fund. It's the same thing, but your fees are higher. You may wonder why your advisor's putting you in that. Well, it's because it's the way they're compensated. As a broker, they get charged, or they get paid by charging a commission. And they get their underlying fee annually that's around 25 basis points or 0.25% per year. At RDS Wealth, we do not like commissions. We want to avoid them if at all possible, and we are vowing and committing to you to never charge you a commission on the investments that we put to work for you. 270-600-PLAN if you need us to review your portfolio and see if you're paying unnecessary fees. It would definitely be well worth your time. And in the event that you are, how can we unwind that? How can we change that? Give us a call, or even better, if you want to schedule a time to talk to one of our advisors, navigate over to rdswealth.com, rdswealth.com. And once you're there at the top right-hand side, you will see a spot that says schedule a call. You'll get in touch with one of our advisors, and we'll begin the conversation, figuring out what the next step needs to look like and how we can point you in the best direction possible to achieve the objectives that you desire. We are here to help you accomplish your objectives. And for most of the clients we work with, this means just simply having a retirement where you can walk away free from worry, free from fear of running out of money, the ability to know that you don't have to watch every little turn because you've got a team sitting right beside of you, helping you understand when it's important for you to pay attention and when it's time for you to just sit back and enjoy the journey. And somehow we have reached the end of our time so quickly. Each and every week, it seems like it just goes fast. This weekend, as we're wrapping up, I want you to know that we're here to help in any way we can. Lowering your tax bill is a big thing that we do for clients. We do our best to put together the plans that are necessary to lower taxes on your retirement account, making sure you're getting the income you desire, but whatever's left over is there to be left to your kiddos, your family members, the ones you love, the institutions you care about in the most tax-efficient way possible. If you need help with that, we're here to help. That conversation can start by picking up the phone, dialing our number 270-600-PLAN, or navigating to our website, rdswealth.com. No matter how we talk to you or when we talk to you again, whether it's right here on this same station or it's in person in one of our offices, always remember, until we talk again, save money, plan well, and live happy in retirement. God bless.
Investing involves a risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. R.D. Smothers Wealth Management is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by R.D. Smothers Wealth Management.